Okay, it's 4 o'clock. Let me see. I'm gonna turn this off a little bit, or I can just go here. And here we are. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Halter Berg, and I am a country coordinator of EURAXESS here in China. And before I introduce what we're going to be doing here today, I was thinking maybe we could do a little exercise. We're still getting people joining us, so in the meantime, I thought maybe you guys could join me on using the system here that is called Menti. If you see it on the screen right now, you can go to a website on your phone called menti.com, and there you can put in this code, which is 20113577, or you can also see it on the top of the screen right now. And just to kind of start us off today, I was wondering if you could write down 3 words that describe how you feel about public speaking. So whatever comes to your mind, whatever you feel about public speaking. In my case, when I think about public speaking, I always feel a little exhilarated, which means like really exciting and but also very fun. I always feel very honored to be able to talk to all these people and be able to communicate with so many people out there. And I also feel very I guess like enthusiastic, because normally I have a lot of things that I want to share, and I want to be able to put it out there. So if you have 3 words that come to your mind when you think about this, please go to menti.com and put in this code here. And I will continue our introduction, and during that time, you can maybe try to think about 3 words that comes to your mind. Well, I can see that already some of you have been putting in some words. There's words like opportunity, thoroughness. More words are popping in. Intimidating. Oh man, I know that feeling. Nervous. That's also how I feel. If you can like put in this one into this code, like 21003577 on the website menti.com, that would be a really great start. So we are going to use this website in today's webinar. I'm going to be using it to ask you guys questions and try to make it a little bit more interactive. So by doing that, you can kind of participate a little bit. But okay, I'm going to leave this here. You guys can, if you're already open menti.com, you can continue put in words. But while you guys are doing that, I want to start the introduction for today's webinar. You know that you can still put in words. So if you haven't done it yet, just think about it, put it in, and then we'll take a look afterward. So this is the online science communication training of the EURAXESS Science Slam. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what EURAXESS is. If you're not familiar, EURAXESS is an initiative of the European Commission of the European Union. We have an office here in China, but we have also offices all over the world. And our main objective is to sort of help Chinese researchers that are interested in connecting with the European research area to do so, but also to help European researchers that want to connect with China to do that. So we do that by introducing all kinds of funding opportunities from both sides, etc., but also by offering different types of career advancement tools, etc. We've been doing this kind of science communication for many years as well, different trainings and different things like that. So that is a really old part of sort of the EURAXESS project, the EURAXESS Science Slam. I am not alone here today. With me, I have the whole EURAXESS China team. We have Anna Fatinetti, who is also a country coordinator for EURAXESS here in China. Anna, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me, everybody? Yeah, I'm Anna Fakinetis. Very nice to meet you. And I'm looking forward to start this new adventure with all of you. And hope that all of you are going to stay throughout the 5 sessions that we're going to talk about in a little moment. So welcome, everybody.
Thank you, Anna. Anna is going to be my co-host here today. We're going to be introducing the different parts of this webinar together. But we're also here with another colleague, Vanessa Lee, who is our colleague based here in the office in Beijing. Vanessa, are you there?
Yeah, sure. And 大家好，我是 EURAXESS 的 Vanessa，非常欢迎大家来参加我们今天的培训。后面大家有什么问题呢，也可以用中文提问，就在我们的有一个聊天儿那个环节，就是聊天的那个小的那个 box，可以把问题输进去，然后我可以为您翻译。谢谢大家。OK，好的。
谢谢 Vanessa. So this webinar today is going to be in English, but we're also going to have webinars later in Chinese. I wish I could do this in Chinese. I'm trying to improve my Chinese, and I really have ambition to become a good public speaker in Chinese also. So maybe in the future we can see something like that. But in the meantime, we rely on the help from Vanessa, who is so helpful. And really, if you guys just want to chat with her, or if you have some questions, you just want to kind of share more complicated thoughts and so on, you can just use your mother language. We are in China after all. Obviously, for it's also everybody's welcome to use English. Okay, so let's go to the sort of what we're going to be doing here today. So the focus of today is going to be of the advantages of science communication for researchers. And the idea is a little bit to put it up in such a way that this can frame the activities of the whole course. We're going to be starting with this course now, and then we're going to have a weekly course for the next 5 weeks. Anna's going to tell you a little bit more about that. But we're going to begin here today by talking about, in general, what science communication means for researchers. So I remember when I was starting this job 6 years ago here in Beijing, I had already done quite a bit of public speaking in my past, but honestly, this was a totally new field for me. I'd never talked in front of this kind of crowd before. I was doing my first event, a researchers night in Wudako here in Beijing, in a house cafe, which was a cafe that used to be next to Tsinghua University. And we invited a lot of researchers and scientists to come over, and we were doing a little bit of a networking event. And I was talking in front of them. And I mean, like, I know how to talk. That's fine. That's totally okay. But I felt like a total fraud. Why? Because you guys are all so smart. I'm talking in front of like nothing but PhDs and professors, and I mean like really, really excellent smart people. And I was like feeling really, really nervous about this. This was the first time I was talking in front of this audience, and I feel like, what have I to say to these people? What do I know about their experience and what to do? And I was like sweating a lot, and before I was just like really trying to rehearse what to do and so on. And then I went up there, and it went okay. I did not feel like it was one of my best public speaking activities, but after the event, we relaxed a little bit. We offered a couple of drinks. There was some beer, and people came over. And there was this professor at Peking University, very respectable professor that I respect a lot. And he came to me and said, "Alter, I know that you're going to stay with EURAXESS for a really long time." And I said, "Why?" "Because you look so natural." And I was like, "Really? You felt like I looked natural?" I just couldn't believe that, because I didn't feel natural at all. But the thing is that looks can be deceiving. People don't always see how you feel. And that is kind of the trick to the public speaking. You know, you have to realize that if you can control how you engage yourself and so on, you can convey a certain impression on people, although that might not necessarily be how you feel. So that is a hope for all of us that might not feel very comfortable with public speaking. So the way that we're going to be doing this here today is that we're going to give a little overview of the whole course. We're then going to talk about what are the advantages for scientists in particular, and why people like you, researchers and scientists, should think about communication as an integral part of your job. Then I'm going to a little bit talk about how we can train ourselves and how we can become better. And then me and Anna are going to share some lessons to start the course with, like few things that we learned over the years, and maybe ask you guys a little bit what you have learned at the same time. And at the end, we will also mention a bit about like different science communication channels that we have available and will be available to you as well. So this is how we're going to be doing it. I just want to make a disclaimer at the beginning immediately. There are certain things we can do here today. We can share a lot. We can use things like Menti to ask questions and so on. A real training, obviously, would need people to be in the same place. It's really difficult to do a real training online. I've done communication trainings in the past with like actors and with people that are used to performing, and it's all about your body. It's about the physicality of it. It's about learning how to open up and do different things. This is not going to be easy to do online. I'm so sorry to say that, but it doesn't mean we cannot share a lot of experience and learn a lot from this course. And we will make sure that we will try our best to do some kind of exercises with you, and maybe next fall we will be able to do like a physical event and invite you guys to come over to do like more like a further more advanced training in person. Who knows? That is one thing that I would love to be able to do with all of you. But let's start here. I think this is a great start. Like I said at the beginning, if you haven't joined our WeChat group, you can scan it over here. But what I wanted to do before I go back to my colleague Anna is that I was thinking about looking quickly at the Menti and see what you guys wrote. So I see a lot of words here. I see opportunity and exciting, and I see interesting and fun. I can definitely agree with all of these words. But I see that the biggest word is nervous. And I understand that also. I feel nervous right now. And being nervous is not bad. It's actually very good to feel nervous. It's energy. It means that you care about what you're doing. You want to do it well, so you worry about it. That's what humans do. You just need to channel that energy, and that's one of the things we want to do here in this course. I see people think about self-concern and intimidating and so on, a little bit confused and that sort of thing. Stomach ache, somebody says, anxiety. I understand, but this is great. This is exactly what I mean. It's exhilarating. It's a combination of something that is very, very scary, but also very exciting. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to go to ask you guys a couple of questions before I start. I was wondering if you could kind of tell me a little bit what you think about your presentation skills. If you are at menti.com right now, you can maybe answer, like, where do you think your presentation skills are? So I'm going to actually do it myself. I can go here to menti.com. And the code is 2011 3500. And I'm gonna boast. I'm gonna say I think I'm very good. You know, we have to be confident, right? Anyway, so I can see that if I look here, a lot of people have answered the question already, and I guess most of people are saying that they're medium. Like we have like by far the biggest majority of people say that they're kind of in the middle. This is totally anonymous, so we don't know who is saying what. So if you wanna, you know, the two people that said they're bad, good for you. You know, you don't need to pretend. Nobody knows. So that's good. Also, if you're medium, there's a lot of space to improve. If you're good, there's still a lot of space to improve. We can always get better. And if you're very good, there is also space to improve. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next question and the final question for now, where I ask you, have you ever attended this kind of communication training before? And this is a simple one, yes or no. Because this is actually very helpful for us. This will help us to understand sort of your background. We know kind of how you feel, how good you feel you're at this, how many of you have done this before. Also helps us to kind of consider what we need to do. People that have done different science communication trainings before, they might need a very different support than others. Incredibly, we have exactly 50-50 here. Almost. A lot of people have done it before. A lot of people have not done this before. We have about 18 people saying no, 20 saying yes. It's very common that you do you have some kind of communication training, especially for people in university and so on. There are different communication training available. I wonder, and it would be fun to talk about it maybe in the VChat group and so on. What's your experience with that? What you felt about that? And what kind of courses were you doing? Were you doing like one of those global ones like Dale Carnegie or something like that? Or was it something that your workplace work was organizing? It would be very interesting. Anyway, so that is it for me. And I was thinking if Anna would like to kind of take us through what we're going to be doing in the course.
Yes, Haldor, happily. Yeah, let's start with the short overview, a short introduction of what the 5 trainings that we're going to have are going to talk about. This overview. So as you probably all know, we are going to have 5 different trainings on different aspects of science communication, and we start from the basics fact that we think that science communication, and therefore being able to communicate the relevance of what you're doing, the importance of your research work, can be a key asset in your career as a researcher. So training 1 is the one that you're attending today. Haldor already talked a little bit about it. We are going to focus on the advantages that it might bring you, and we're going to give some tips and hints on how you can train yourself at becoming a better science communicator. With the second trainer, we will have Lina Yi. She is a Chinese trainer. So this second training will be done exclusively in Chinese. So you're all warned. If your Chinese is not the best, you still have 1 week to go to study a little bit. Lina has her own etiquette training company, and she's also working for the Beijing Association of Science and Technology. She will give very concrete advices on how you should perform when being on a stage in front of an audience. So she will talk both about how to use your body language, how to walk, how to use gestures, how to move on a stage, and also how to use voiced language. So how you talk when you have a mic, how to modulate your tone of voice, how to choose the words. I think it's going to be very, as I said, very concrete, and she will provide a lot of tips that you can also then use to practice at home, by your own in front of a mirror, or, with colleagues. That is going to be the 18th of March. The third training is going to be on creative speech. So we will focus especially on how to get an audience, how to get people who are also non-experts in your field of research interested in what you're doing. We have a trainer who is a Brazilian artist and learning designer, researcher, and educational consultant. He has a very, very multifaceted background, and he's now based in France. So you see there are also positive sides of having online trainings. We can involve both participants and experts who wouldn't be able to be physically in Beijing, even in a normal situation. So Joao will deliver this pretty interactive and dynamic presentation, and he will focus especially on how to pitch, how to prepare a perfect creative and pitch that puts together also his different competencies in these different fields, so art, science, and education. I'm looking forward to that. That is going to be the 25th of March. The fourth training is going to be again led by me and Haldor. So I hope you will stay with us also for that one. We will focus this time on online communication and how to approach for the first time an international partner. We will try to see how to apply different cultural etiquettes, different cultural customs when approaching a partner that is not in China and maybe like, you know, possibly in Europe. And we will also focus on how to start engaging different people at different levels. So by email, larger groups with new media, and also online meetings, and so like medium-sized groups. That is going to be Thursday, the 1st of April, before the final training number 5, where we will hear the experience of our Science Slam winner of 2018. I think Haldor will also show us some videos and hopefully with more luck than me later about Professor Chen, who is based at Shanghai Jiaotong University. And I think someone has the microphone on and is a bit disturbing. So please, if it's not the time of the Q&A, you're asking a question, remember to mute yourself. And so we will hear also his experience, and maybe he will give us some advices on how to win a Science Slam. So this is going to be the final training. As you see, we have different, very different speakers. This last one is going to be held in both Chinese and English language. So also, you know, the approach is going to be quite innovative and hopefully effective. So to conclude this overview, I just want to mention our certifications. Those of you attending at least today's training might be able to get the silver certification, which is the one that is awarded when you gain at least one specific practical skill. Then we have the gold certification that is for those who decide to participate in multiple sessions, so they can say that they acquire different practical skills taught by different experts on the different aspects of science communication. And finally, you can go all the way and send us a short video of 3 minutes where you try to apply the competences that you have acquired by participating to all the different sessions. That will give you a diamond certification, and also you will receive a personal feedback from us and from our experts on how to improve your skills based on the video that you sent. So I think that would be also a good opportunity to, you know, to test yourself and also get feedback on how to improve. So this is the end of my overview, and we take the chance here to ask you a couple of questions, a couple of polls. First of all, very easy, we would like to know how many trainings you're planning to participate into. So
let's take a look.
I've been sharing.
Yep. I need to.
Yeah.
Now we're here.
I can hear you jumping in, Haldor, so I let you the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, we have the question now on the screen. If you go to Menti, it would be nice to see how many people are thinking about doing the whole thing, right?
Okay, I see that the majority that responded so far is planning to take all the trainings. So this means that even with despite the logistics problems at the beginning, they might also join our second training, Haldor, which makes me very happy. Okay, great. And then a second short question where we would like to know what you expect to get from these trainings. There are different answers that we are suggesting. So if you have no idea, you're just curious about what we'll be talking about, that's totally fine. But if you have, you know, more specific goals, because we saw that 50% of you already participate in some trainings. So if you have more specific expectations, you can And answer this. Okay, I see that there's at least like a clear idea of what you want to gain, and I guess that also matches with what we wanna get, what we want to provide with these trainings, like basic knowledge and improving presentation skills. Okay, so Halder, I let you continue here after having this very interesting responses from our audience.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go on by trying again to show another video. Let's see if this works a little bit better. I'm going to. 你好，今天我要跟你们分享一下科研沟通传播技能对你的就业有益的5个原因。第一个是说服同事为你关心的项目获得资金和鼓励。第二个是赢得本科研领域同行的关注，你可以给国际伙伴留下印象，交到合作者。第三，说服政治决定者和投资者，由于弹性的研究具有政治决定者的官方的支持，因此要努力争取支持。第四，是公众了解你所处领域。倘若你想让自己处所的领域蓬勃发展，此时是全社会了解它的重要性。你越接近你所在领域的地方，你就越有责任确保公众了解你所做工作的重要性。
Sorry, cannot
最后的
listen.
原因是关于我们的动力。我们创造知识是为了能够分享它们。认真是科研作为企业的依据，是我们来知识，而终能够有些发现并享受之前所为之带来的纯粹乐趣。能够分享这些知识和这种乐趣是十分重要的事情。欢迎参加我们于3月11日开始的科研沟通传播技能提升在线的训练，并获得 EURAXESS 的科学传播认证。请在我们的网站 EURAXESS.org 还是 China.EURAXESS.org China.EURAXESS.org， 然后在那边可以免费报名。欢迎你。All right, that was my attempt to do Chinese public speaking. I'm going to talk a little bit about this. Today's seminar is going to be in English mostly, but we prepared this video last week in Chinese, and you have to excuse my pronunciation. I'm trying my best. Anyway. What we were talking about in the video, as you could see, is that we sort of identified 5 reasons why science communication is good for a scientist career. And I was thinking maybe we could like talk a little bit more about that. The first point that we discussed is, you know, the most basic one. You need to be able to kind of convince the people around you. I know a lot of researchers, I know a lot of scientists, and I know that a part of the job is sort of navigating the office politics in your own workplace. It's part of all of our jobs. It's part of my job also. You need to be able to convince others that your vision and what the things that you want to do is something that they should also be excited about. So this is a very basic thing with very small target audience. Maybe you're just thinking about your own boss. Maybe you're thinking about the peers in your research institute. But this is a very sort of a big part of why being able to communicate is very important if you're a scientist.
And second reason, let me jump in. Second reason is also that it might help you gain recognition in your field. So good science communication skills can help you convince your own scientific communities, gain attention, gain recognition, which also means that you might gain wider, stronger influence among the researchers working in your own field. This means also making a good impression when participating in international conference, which might lead to new collaborations and maybe also new, opening new doors and enlarging your network. It can be very, very helpful to a researcher's career. And one last point that I want to stress here is also that in this regards, communication and dissemination are quite different. So if dissemination is more what you do every day, so related to publication of papers in peer-reviewed articles, what we're talking about today as science communications is referred also to being able to communicate to different audiences, so to your own peers, but also to make grow awareness in audiences that are not related at all to your research field. Then we can move to the third reason.
Yeah, I mean, like the third reason would be beyond sort of the people around you and being able to advance your own career. I think everybody here knows that already. That's probably the reason why they're interested in this. They can see how useful that is. But I also think that beyond that, science communication is very, very important in general for scientists and the scientific fields. You guys need to be able to convince the people that make decisions that what you're doing is important. That is like very fundamental to everything that we're trying to achieve here. I mean, like I wish that scientists could decide the policy of the world and so on and how money is spent, but it's not really up to scientists. It is up to politicians and policymakers and government people, or at least with most basic researchers, it's all funded by public money mostly, and everything beyond that would then be funded by whom? Venture capitalists or other sort of investors. These people, they might have a vision, they might know what they want, but they don't necessarily know what you know. And it is your job to kind of guide them a little bit, tell them why what you do is really important. And then point number 4.
Yes, that is also related to what you just said. That is getting the public on board, getting the public on your side. So, if you want your field of science to flourish, the whole society needs to understand that what you're doing is important, that might even have an impact on their everyday life. So you cannot stay in your ivory tower of specialists, but you really need to step out of that arena and talk to wider audience and wider stakeholders. Halder, you also mentioned that there is, I think, a certain level of responsibility to make sure that the public understand the importance of your work and what you're doing. Maybe also even a moral obligation to do so if your research is funded by public money. And the closer you get to reach the top in your research field, the greater the responsibility it is. So to make this happen, to be able to address an audience of non-experts who may have very, very little clue of what you're doing, you really need to train your communication skills and be able to gain their support through an effective communication. And related, to point number 3 as well, the awareness of the public, the awareness of the citizens also might influence the decision of the policymakers, right? Because who's in charge of deciding also how, where, and to whom assign research fundings will definitely take into considerations what the citizens, what the public consider as important, and that will all only happen if they are aware, if they understand what the researchers do in their labs. There's really a huge amount of research done in many different, very interesting fields that doesn't reach where it gets to where it should be. So science communication can help a lot in this regard. And then we have a final reason.
Yeah, I mean, like, I really like the point that you made about how I feel like we have sort of a responsibility towards the public in terms of informing them and making sure to raise science literacy. It's a really big problem in the world today. We have all this knowledge. We know a lot of things these days, but like, is it possible to communicate this to people? If not, it's kind of pointless, right? So this is what I think a lot of people are motivated by when they go into science. They like knowledge. They like to discover things, and they like to find out new things for the whole world to enjoy. But to be able to do that, you need to be able to share it somehow. I mean, right now there's a lot of insularity inside of in the science world, where people are just kind of talking to each other through publications and peer-reviewed processes and so on. But at some point, there needs to be a conversation with the rest of the world, and I think that's not something we need to convince you guys of, because I think most people started doing this because that's something that they are interested in to the begin with. I think curiosity. I'm gonna silence here one guy. So I think curiosity and the joy of discovery is a very basic human tendency. I think a lot of people that become scientists are very curious people. They love to find out new things. They love to share it. So I think we have a really great group of people here today that are already motivated to do this. Honestly, also, in addition to that, we should not forget to mention that a lot of you are already teaching, right? You guys are probably professors and are doing teaching and already communicating with students a lot and so on. And that is part of science communication. It's kind of like a generational knowledge transfer that you guys are responsible for and very happy to do, at least some of you. But there's also this kind of horizontal knowledge transfer that needs to happen outside of your field to the rest of the world, that is very, very helpful for whole society, for the world, for our future, but also for yourself eventually. Let's put that behind us now and get to the next section. In this section, I wanted to do a little bit of an interesting experiment. I wanted to talk a little bit about a concept called deliberate practice. And the reason for why I'm talking about this right here is because due to the fact that we are doing an online course together, we will not get a lot of opportunities to train directly each other, doing exercises together and so on. But I want to stress and make sure that you know that it's very important to do exercise. Without exercise, you're not going to get better. If you don't train yourself, you will not get good at this. So right now, I'm going to talk a little bit about how that happens. Maybe it will inspire you to try to find ways to train yourself a little bit. So I think that's a great sort of starting point. We're going to have other trainers coming in the coming weeks, so they're going to share their experience and so on. But in the end, this is kind of up to you to take those lessons, apply themselves, and incorporate them, make them part of your own skill set. And I kind of really like this concept of deliberate practice. It's a concept that was designed by, was kind of introduced by a researcher named Anders Ericsson, and I'm sure a lot of you guys already know about this. But what I really like about what he has to say is the fact that it's very obvious, but we don't do it. I don't know if you know, there's a popular theory out there called the 10,000 hour rule. Popularized by an author named Malcolm Gladwell. The 10,000 hour rule says that if you just do something for 10,000 hours, you will become a master. And it's a very interesting, it's a very neat little number. It sounds very convincing. 10,000 hours is a lot of time. It's maybe, I don't know, it's like a 10 years of daily practice for a person to be able to arrive at that level. And he's saying this is what all masters, all skillful people in the world have in common. They have that time that they put into it to do something. Is this rule true? Kind of, but not really. It is based on this original idea from Anders Ericsson and his research on deliberate practice. It is true that people that are good at and very skillful in certain areas, they have a lot of practice behind them. But the data also supports that it cannot just be any practice. If you keep doing for 10,000 hours the wrong thing again and again, you will not get better. That's just kind of obvious, right? So he just emphasizes to you have to kind of look for field expertise. So different fields have like maybe centuries old history of doing certain things, and there have been people in history that got really good at it. And the best way to get good is to look at what they did and look at the systems that are out there, and look what they like, how they got better, how they got good. Unfortunately, we don't really have amazingly good system for public speaking. It's not like you just can just go to a university, enroll to a master's program in public speaking. It really kind of doesn't exist. But there are a lot of people that got really good at it, and we can definitely study them. You can also just try yourself to find a person that you think is really good at public speaking, and you can try to ask them questions and ask them what they did and how they went about it, and so on. That could be a really interesting step. And I know that sounds obvious, but how many of you have ever actually done that? I know that I had to be kind of pushed into that kind of thinking to actually do something like that. So that's just the first thing. Find your master, find out like who, like how people go about doing this, that sort of thing. The second obvious thing about practicing is that you need to push yourself. So you need to sort of get you out of your comfort zone, and you need to exert hard work. That's just what you need to do. It's not it just doesn't happen. It's not supposed to be easy. You know, our brain really doesn't want to change. You know, we need to force it to change. And I mean, like, what I'm saying here is like I go to the gym very regularly, and when I go to the gym, I could listen to podcasts when I'm doing my exercises, but honestly, that's not a really good idea. You should be focusing on what you're doing, right? And you know, like, it sounds really obvious. You need to push yourself and you need to be focusing on what you're doing, but you know, we don't do it, and we should. And that's how you get better. In this case, what does it kind of mean when it comes to public speaking? It might just mean that you need to fail a lot. That is really very sad truth here. I'm basically saying that you might need to go out and participate in different activities and fail horribly. And again, you might not have really good experience with it, but that's how you get better. You're doing something you're not good at, and that's how you learn. And I can tell you that just in my daily working life, that doesn't a month go by without a huge failure that I really regret, etc. But there's never been a huge failure that I didn't learn from, and that's, you know, what we need to be doing. We need to be pushing ourselves a little bit. The next thing that I think that is worth mentioning here is that when you're training towards something, a lot of people just like kind of, oh, I'm studying Chinese, like me, and I'm like, oh, I just like gonna learn here and there, and I just like generally get better over time. No, that's not how it works. You need to find one thing that you want to get better at. It cannot be too big. It cannot be just like, I want to get better at everything that has to do with this one field. You need to find one specific aspect that you want to train at. It needs to be something you can actually measure and see the difference in, so you can actually like sort of progress. So you need to find a specific aspect of what you want to get better at and really train that. In like all big things, like all big skills that you acquire in your life is normally a combination of a lot of smaller skills. And then like when you get really better, it just means that you manage to master more aspects of that one thing. And no matter how good you can become, there's always another thing you could learn better. It's just how it is. So in this case, what does that mean? It means that instead of thinking about, I want to get good at public speaking or talking in front of an audience, think about a specific thing that you would like to learn. At least one thing that you would like to learn after this, you would like to practice. It could be like, I want to memorize my speech better, or it could be how to, stand. Or, like, I can tell you one thing that I've been trying to do. I notice when I'm doing these kind of presentations, a lot of the times I put my eyes up a lot. I'm do like this, and I have like lines over here, and I'm like, it's like a habit I do when I'm talking. So like for the last like 3 or 4 months, I've been trying really focusing hard to control my facial muscles a little bit when I'm talking. Very tiny little thing that I'm just trying to get better at. What I'm saying, it doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be something you can actually check on, and then you can go to the next thing. And so can we. We can go to the next and the final aspect of the deliberate practice that I'm going to be introducing here today, and that is the role of repetition and feedback. Okay, how does the 10,000 hour rule work? Does it work in a way that people just do again and again a certain thing? Yes, that is how it works. But if you just do the same thing again and again, that won't work. What you need is that you need to do something, and then you need to have some feedback that tells you how you did. And then you need to modify what you did and change how you do it next time. Do it again, get feedback. It needs to be a feedback loop. That's just how it goes. That is very, very important thing to think about. So if you're training yourself, if you start now to try to become better communicator, try to figure out how you can get feedback. When you do something, how can you get feedback? It could be something simple. It could be just doing it in front of a mirror and just look at yourself when you're doing it, or do like I was doing and record yourself and look at your own face and how you look. That is like the most smallest amount of feedback you could get. Even better, get other people to watch you and tell you how you did. That's one of the things that we are going to offer you, actually. If you're interested in feedback from us, at the end of this course, we will invite you guys to send in a 10-minute video with your own presentation, where we will be able to give you feedback, what we think about it, and so on. It's not because we know better than you how to talk about certain thing. It's just because it's always good to get somebody to tell you what they think about what you're doing, for yourself to decide how you feel about that. And then also, when you're out there in the room, look, the most direct and immediate feedback is just going to be the feedback from the audience. You look at them, try to pay attention to what they're doing and how they are reacting to you. Did they laugh at your joke? If they didn't, why was that? That's like a thing that I always think about. One of the problems with these webinars is that I cannot get no feedback. I have no idea how you are reacting to what I'm saying right now. I hope it's good. Actually, yeah. So that is about deliberate practice. And that brings me to the next session, which I'm going to be doing here with Anna again, where we just want to maybe talk and share a little bit about our experience with public speaking. We both have a lot of experience with public speaking. I speak almost probably like 30, 40 times a year in front of huge crowds here in China and all over the world. And me and Anna are doing these webinars very regularly all over the year, talking to people. I have to admit, I'm more comfortable on stage rather than in front of a camera. The camera is so strange. It's hard to know who you're talking to and what's happening. But nonetheless, we have something to share. We are not experts in the same way that the trainers that we're going to bring on in the next part of the course. But we still think that we can maybe bring some tips that we think are really good for us and we have good experience with. And also maybe I saw earlier, there were people, like almost all of you have some experience with public speaking. Some of you have a lot of experience with public speaking. Maybe you have some good tips as well and so on. I would be very interested in the Q&A session to hear from you, how you feel about that. So I'm going to go here to the first one. This is an interesting one. We started designing this course maybe 4 or 5 months ago. I started talking to people and about scientists doing communication, and I've seen a lot of scientists come up, and one of the things that is very common is that they really don't have a lot of. Sometimes they're very dry and formal, and they're talking about something that becomes very boring really soon, and this is probably also a habit because you're talking about a very serious thing, right? You're talking about maybe something that matters a lot and you would like to talk about it in a very formal way. Maybe you feel like that's the only appropriate way to go about it. But I have to recommend that you think about how to let your enthusiasm shine through, because I know that these same scientists that are so dry and talking about numbers up there on stage and something that becomes so boring immediately, these people are not boring people. And what they're talking about is not boring. I meet them after the event and we maybe have a dinner together or something, and they start telling me again, just face to face, what they're doing, and you can see that they're super excited about it. They've spent their whole life thinking about this. They could talk about it for hours and hours and hours. They don't need any script. They don't need to prepare. They don't need to rehearse. They already know it. They're very, very how to say, they're the biggest authority on it probably, except for maybe 10 other people in the world. Nobody knows this better than them. And they also know why it's very important to them and why they care about it and why we should also care about it. So how about when you go to the States to try to channel that enthusiasm? Yeah, I know that we're sometimes worried about how people look at us and think about us. But I guarantee you, enthusiasm is better than being boring. This is a little bit of a trick from like Dale Carnegie, which is a communication training that I really recommend, actually. I think it's really good. But it's a really nice quote here. He talks about that it doesn't really matter what the subject is. It's always your passion that will save you in the end. If you don't care about it and you don't have any opinion about it, it's going to be very obvious to everybody immediately. If you are passionate about it and so on, dig into that, use that for you. That is my recommendation. And if there's any one thing that I wish that you will remember after today's webinar is this thing. Try to find a way to talk to the wider audience in the same way that you would talk to me if we were having a coffee together, because I know that that would be a fun conversation. From there, I want to go to another thing that is actually also a Dale Carnegie trick. I promise this is there are only 2 of them in this course, but these are the kind of 2 golden things that I really like from them. And his trick is about getting people's attention very early. You have to start vividly. You have to hit people immediately. At the beginning of what you're talking, you need to start with something that catches people's attention. If they will not pay attention at the beginning, you'll probably not get their attention later on in the talk. And even if you had something amazing at the end that you want to say, that would be very difficult to deliver. And it's interesting. In Chinese, there's this tendency sometimes to put the most important thing at the back, and that's okay. That's fine. That's a cultural habit. But in the same way that when you're reading the news, the most interesting thing should always be like at least in the front somewhere in the beginning. When you're talking to an audience, you should also probably be thinking about it in that way. How can I make sure right away that I catch them, and then I can go into the details. And one way to catch people early is to use stories. So it's just how human brain works. People remember stories. We don't remember facts or numbers. I'm horrible with names and whatever, but tell me a story and I'll remember it 20 years later. That's why it's really interesting just to use a story to tell something, at least when you're not talking to somebody that is on your level of knowledge about a project. Talk about some story when it comes to that. I just really think that's very, very, very helpful thing. Even when you're talking about your field of expertise to other peers, it can be a really powerful thing. I remember when I did my master's defense, maybe 10 years ago. I was at Peking University doing my master's defense, and I had 3 really respectable professors from Peking University sitting in front of me in the field of international relations, and they were looking at me. And I was telling them about climate change and different strategies in the North Pole. And at the end, I talk about all of them. I've been working on this for a whole year, all the different analytical comparisons and yada, yada, yada. And at the end, they have to ask me a question. And the first question comes, and a woman, she asked me, are there really polar bears in Iceland? And I thought it was so funny because it had nothing to do with what I was saying. But in the middle of my talk, I mentioned that because of climate change, there had like a couple of polar bears appeared in Iceland in less than 3 months. Normally, there are no polar bears in Iceland. And this was the thing she heard and remembered. She thought that was very interesting. And then she started asking other questions and so on. It's just, I even forgot about that. I was talking about that. So that's very interesting. People remember stories. You should take advantage of this. You should always start with a story. And that brings me to Anna's part, right? I think Anna will talk about how to keep it simple, right?
Exactly. So let me share my screen. And yes, the other element we want to talk about today, there's more, but the next one is to keep it simple, or even to keep it stupid simple. So to really send your message, you need to be as clear as possible, but it's important that you don't overload your audience with excessive information, and that applies to a presentation that you do personally and like by speaking through your voice. That also applies to some visual support you might have. So when using PPT slides, for example, do not try to avoid to add too many details and to create this feeling of a slide that is overcrowded. It's better to keep it simple. So choose what are your main messages, what is that is important your audience get to understand your research, to understand your points, and highlight it. Also, try not to be redundant. It's important, especially when you're talking to non-experts that might have never heard about what you're presenting before, to reiterate the message to make sure that it's really understood. But being redundant then doesn't help to keep the attention alive in your audience. Also, another good tip is to use analogies. So you're talking about blood vessels, and you can compare them to water pipes. The water flowing in the pipes can be compared to the blood flowing in the vessels. Using analogies can really make people picture complex, elaborate situations in a much easier ways, as well as a picture or a video in your presentation can let those who are looking at it understand it in a glimpse, and much faster, in a much more immediate way than with the full detailed description of it. Also, try to be very concrete. Try to talk like you were talking to your grandma. So instead of saying something like, we are applying natural killer T cells in anti-tumor immunotherapy, you can simply turn into something that sounds like, we are helping the body defense system to fight cancer. And this would be this would consider the same message, but it will be understandable to the wider audience. In being simple, trying to be visual and interactive. So as I just mentioned, use colors, use pictures. Sometimes having a visual support when you're giving a presentation really helps a lot to focus and can really help you to direct the attention to the main messages without getting lost into the whole discourse. And when you think you are ready to go, then ask yourself this last question. Would you be able to explain what you're going to talk about in 1 minute to a 10-year-old? If you think you can do that, then you're definitely on the right path. Then moving to the next one is about be yourself. We touched a little bit this already. It's important when communicating to show your personal engagement in your work and in your research, because that brings your audience closer to you. And that also, of course, relate to telling stories, like Halder was saying. So try to be personal, share your personal experience, even making some jokes can, you hope, can help catch the attention of your audience, both in a formal and in an informal situation. Some, short, small jokes can be really catchy, and try to and help you keep the attention through over the presentation, especially if it's a long and elaborate one. Then try always to keep your own style, even when even thinking, oh, Halder is such a good speaker, such a good such a good presenter. You need to find your own style and avoid imitating others, because that normally results in pretty weird outcomes. Show yourself and show how much efforts and energies you're putting in your work, because that really is going to get to the audience and is going to raise more interest. Also, using emotions is another thing that can help. So is again about telling stories and try not to focus exclusively on the facts, but also try to frame them into a context that can be very personal and that add this little bit of value that can make the difference. So try to be always inspiring and trying to be entertaining when you're presenting, and show that you are inspired to work in your research field to inspire your own audience. Then how to prepare. When getting ready to make a presentation, we think you should always take some time to prepare in advance. And there are mainly 3 steps that we identified. The first one is start studying. How do you want to talk and how do you want to make your presentation? And that doesn't mean that you want to write down and prepare a written text so to follow exactly when and to read aloud when it's your turn to speak at an audience. That actually is pretty counterproductive, because even if with a prepared text you are sure you won't forget anything of what you want to say, still that would have a negative impact on you being natural, which is a very essential element that is immediately perceived by your audience when you talk. So do not read aloud, prepare text if you can. Is better. You have, you know what you're working on. You just need to prepare what you want to say, your discourse in your mind. Also, don't memorize word by word, because that will also feel unnatural. And if you're nervous, and many of us today said that science communication for them is also related to this feeling of being nervous. Well, when you're nervous, it's more difficult to focus. It's definitely more difficult to memorize. And if you need to count on that for your presentation, it might be really a little bit of a disaster. So what you have to do is to choose the right words and the right expressions that you want to use. Those are going to be, easy to memorize and are going to help you build your discourse. And what you can also do before to prepare is to try your presentation aloud with someone who is not familiar with the topic and that can give you a feedback on what is not clear, especially when you're talking to an audience of non-experts. It's important to understand if you're given for granted some pieces of knowledge that are not granted, shouldn't be taken for granted for everybody. So ask yourself some questions when preparing. What is the final goal of your presentation? Where is that? What is that you're aiming at? If there's specific background information and background knowledge that is needed to understand your work and what you can do about it, if your audience is not homogeneous, if your audience might not be aware of that. Why what you're presenting is significant. That is, of course, a key element. It needs to be meaningful. Otherwise, your audience will just turn around and go listen to someone else. And then also with the conclusions, try to always suggest what will be the next step of your work, what it could lead to, what could be the impact. And step 3 is about following main points. So we said to structure your presentation around some main elements that you have very clear in your mind and that you can follow through your presentation. It's much more important that you have a clear, line of thoughts to follow in your mind, rather than remembering all the details that you decided you wanted to mention. So try always to follow this order that is also needs to be like logical and chronological order, right? So if you at some point, if you realize you just forgot something, probably it's better not to step back to add that detail that is not fundamental, but just move forward, and maybe you can add something else you didn't think of adding, since you forgot something and you have 1 extra minute. And we said it already, visual support presentation slides might help a lot, also for you to to remember the main points, and not to forget anything. And this last one is going to be my last tip, is about your audience. You really need to understand what is your audience and speak their language. So you need to be able to step into their shoes to make sure they understand and that the importance and what is relevant in what you're doing in your work can be passed to the audience. Of course, you need to adapt the language, and especially if you use specific terminology, or if you get into some technicalities, you definitely need to know that your audience understand. So adapt your language, and always try to make it as a conversation. So you need to try to engage your audience by, well, we will learn a little bit also in the next training how to do it, by sharing personal experiences, by moving onto the stage, and try to get a response on what she's saying. How is it perceived? Is it well perceived? I continue that way, or otherwise I can maybe change a little bit the approach. Your communication needs to be a conversation, in the sense that you need to do it in a way that it doesn't sound like you're just telling them something, but there's a flow back and forth. You are saying something and there's a response, and you react to that. In this way, you are really going to involve the audience in your presentation, and that definitely could have a very good positive impact, and send your real message in a very effective way. And this is also because we normally tend to think about explaining what we're doing, but explanation itself, it's basically the opposite of storytelling. Makes you sound like a boring high school teacher, while in science communication, you really need to try to make a step further and emphasize why the audience should care about what you're saying. Why is that of any interest to them, rather than how you are doing it? That is, of course, especially important when talking about science communication, and so like with wider audiences that are not expert in your field. And so let's move on. I'll stop sharing my screen because I think it's Halder's turn, right? Make a mental map.
Yep.
Haldro, I cannot hear you.
No.
Okay,
But now
you're
you should
here.
be able to hear me. Now, when I'm changing the screen, I keep unmute myself. But here I am, and I'm gonna talk very quickly about how to make a mental map, or like the purpose of making a mental map. This is just personal experience here, like how I go about it. I think it's totally fine to write out a script for your speech or for your speaking engagement. That's a very good way, and a lot of people do it. A very excellent public speakers do that. In general, for myself, I try not to. I try not to. I try not to sort of to be like I wanted to be more, I wanted to sound more natural. I want to make it sound more like something I would be saying to a person, like in real life, person to person. But of course, you need to know where you're going, and you need to know how you want to be doing this. So instead, I suggest that you do something which I call to make a mental map of where you want to go. And it connects to what Anna was talking about earlier about ask yourself questions of what you want to do, and collect sort of different aspects of what you want to be talking about. And let's say that you have now your talking points. You have like all these different talking points. Here's what I do. I put them on little post-it yellow papers, and then I just start to kind of like lining them up into a map of where I want to go. And it's not necessarily always linear. It's not always A to B. It could be a little bit like a tree branching out and allowing me to go to different directions and so on. And why do I do this? I do this because I want to have a visual image in my mind of what I want to do, because I feel like it's a lot easier for me to remember it. I even sometimes draw a little picture on it. I don't put down words. I maybe say just what I want to say, what's the idea, and maybe a little picture, and then I kind of like create like a little tree. This is how I go about it. And what this reminds me of a little bit is in the ancient days in my home country of Iceland, there were no roads. It's very difficult to build the roads. So to be able to find your way, people will create those little rock heaps that you can see a picture of. It's just like a little pile of rock, and when you go to one of them, you'll always able to see the next one, maybe 1 or 2 kilometers away, and it means that you're not restricted. You can go into any direction that you want. There's no restriction here, but it allows you, and you can go around this one, and you can go whatever way you want, but it allows you to always know your way. You can look at it and you remember where you're going. And that's basically what I'm saying. That's the way that I would recommend how to do this. Even sometimes when I'm like preparing for a speaking engagement out when traveling around China, I will go into the hotel room where I'm staying, and I will just spend the evening before creating those mental maps with little post-its on the window. Just put it all there, make like a big tree and look at it. And then I'll just tear it down again and create it again and again until I just know it by heart and know what I want to say. Now, of course, if it's something I've said a lot of times before, I don't need to be doing this. But if it's about a new topic I've never talked about before, it makes me feel a little bit more comfortable. And that's my personal recommendation how I go about that. Of course, your experience may vary. I want to go to the next slide, if it will allow me. Yeah, okay. Here's a little bit practical tips. I was feeling, what else can we kind of like share with you today? I'm sure that in the audience today, there are a lot of people that are very excellent at creating PPT, creating slides, etc. Better than all of us. I mean, like, I bet that some of your job is almost half of it is just to create PPT. So I'm sure that we have really good people here. But honestly, I mean, like, you're not an expert in making a beautiful design. Neither am I. We're not designers or architects. Our expertise lie in other fields. But there are some shortcuts you can take to make what you're doing look more beautiful than you maybe have any right to pretend that you could do yourself. And so I collected a couple of like tricks and that we have here. We, for example, we use templates a lot. I mean, templates, they cost money, but you can get templates for everything. I mean, like, maybe this is obvious to you and you're already doing this, but I was like, I had no idea. You can just buy for 100 Kwai RMB or 50 Kwai RMB. You can buy amazing PPT slide with 300 different slides that you can then put into whatever you want to do. You can do this for PowerPoint or for websites or for emails or for WeChat posts or whatever. They're all out there. And sometimes they're free even. But even if you want to buy one, they're not that expensive. I mean, like, they're maybe 50. Like in back home, they would be around maybe $20, and you can use them again and again by changing them a little bit. Then I also recommend to use beautiful pictures and graphs, and I think this is a very common issue. The pictures that people, like the big mistake people sometimes do is that they use too low resolution picture, and when you blow it up on a big screen, it will not look really nice. But the thing is that you're probably not a photographer. You probably don't have a huge library, a huge collection of beautiful photographs. You could find them online and just steal them, like we say. And I don't, like, personally, between you and me, I don't care. You can do that. But normally those pictures are not super good either. So what you could do is that you could just use stock footage. This is something that is very available. And here in EURAXESS, we're using different stock footage libraries to help us out. When we're doing videos, we use the, it's called storyblocks.com. It's not super expensive. Also for music and whatever. For pictures, like in this presentation, we're using Shutterstock, which is also not too expensive, but still it costs money. And maybe money that you don't want to spend. But there's also free alternatives. For many years, I was using Pexels.com. If you don't know about that one, it's beautiful. It can write almost anything in there. We'll have these beautiful pictures that are there for free. Another one is called Unsplash.com. This is also for free. And I'm talking about really high resolution, very professional, beautiful photographs you can use in a lot of different things for free. Why aren't you using this? Amazing. I think another thing that is really useful to spruce up your presentation is to think a little bit about the colors and how you put them together. And one way to go about that is to use color tools. You don't need to be a color expert yourself or a designer. You can go online, you can pick a color, or you can maybe look at a picture and see what color is in that picture. And then you can use a color tool like an online color wheel or a color palette generator, and you put in that picture, and it will basically tell you what other colors fit with this. And that's what you need to know, right? And then just pick maybe 2 colors, so pick at most 3, 4, maybe 5 colors at most, and then you're good. Don't have it too colorful. Then of course you need to have the software to put it all together. I use Adobe. I think that's really nice. I use like Premiere for videos. I use Photoshop to put things together, but you don't necessarily need to use those. These cost money. There are free alternatives. I'm sure in China that you have a very good software that I'm not familiar with. There's also a free software called GIMP, which you can do all the things where you're putting together like pictures and stuff like that. You want to cut it around and whatever. And also just in PowerPoint, it's incredible what you can do now. You can do amazing amount of editing just right in PowerPoint. So you should just take advantage of that. Or you could do what a lot of my colleagues are doing now around the world and use one of those freemium software. It was free to begin with, something like Canva.com, where you just where they have all these templates already and pictures, and you can put together and create your own design very easily. But it's very smart, and I recommend it. I think another thing a lot of people could do is think a little bit more about the typography. Like use some fonts, use beautiful fonts when you're creating a presentation. How do you do that? It depends. Maybe your computer already have a lot of good fonts. Normally, they really don't. And normally, they don't really have the fonts that you want. And at least in my case, a lot of times I'm trying to recreate a kind of feeling. So I'll look at something that I've seen before and I see a beautiful font. So what can you do? You can go online and you can like go to a font search engine. I don't there in the West we have a lot of them. I'm sure there are Chinese versions as well. You just upload a picture of a font of something with something written on it, and he will tell you what fonts there are. Then you just search for it, and there's almost definitely going to be a free version of it available online. You download it, you install it, and now you have a beautiful font. It's just like very basic thing. You don't need to be an expert. You could really upgrade what you're doing with these sort of little tricks. And then if you want to really take it to a next level, you might think about doing different media. But, be careful. If you want to incorporate videos and so on, you might end up with, what we were facing earlier today, like some technical difficulties maybe or whatever. But it is when it's successful, it looks really, really nice. And in our second webinar that we will be doing, me and Anna, 3 weeks from now, we will talk a little bit more about those different mediums and how you can maybe take advantage of them, especially nowadays when we're doing all of these online meetings and so on. It can be very smart. And the last point that I want to just make before we go out of this and kind of start to get into the end of this webinar, I want to make a point about speaking in foreign language. I know I'm looking through how many people are here today, and I can see the vast majority of participants are Chinese. And that's amazing. That's great. I'm very happy to see all of you here. It's going to be very difficult sometimes to find Chinese participants, and so I'm so happy to have you all here. And I hope that we can do something that's useful for you. But I imagine some of you could say, but Haldor, this is all good and so on, but it all just applies to English. In Chinese, it's very, very different. And also, if I want to speak in English, it's going to be a lot more difficult for me. And the reality is that you are right. That is true. It is a lot more difficult to do it in another language. I'm just telling you, I understand it, and it's true. You could see I did the video earlier in Chinese. I was trying. It's not comfortable, and it took a lot of practice. And it's never going to be as good as when I'm speaking in English. But like I said in our practice part, it's not supposed to be easy, and you just need to keep doing it. And here's the fun thing. Even if you're never going to be perfect, speak perfectly, have perfect pronunciation or grammar, that is not necessary. You just need to be captivating. You need to be able to catch people's attention. Sometimes speaking a little bit differently could even be better. I mean, like, nobody says you need to be perfect English speaker to be able to do a presentation in English. You just need to know how to catch people attention. That is the truth of it. And maybe later we'll have time to talk a little bit more about that. Of course, there could be some good English like language skills that would be good for Chinese speakers to learn about English and so on. And we would be happy to give you some feedback on that if you're wondering about how to say certain things and so on. But in general, this should not be your biggest issue. Your biggest issue is just like, how can I get people's attention? But of course, you need to practice more. And I just wanted to let you know that I understand, and we're still here for you throughout this course. This is not only for people that are perfect English speakers. On the contrary. Yeah, so I think that brings us to the last and the final section, right, Anna?
Yes, we can conclude with this last session. And Haldor, I hope that our tips were useful, and that we're also proving that we are using and following them ourselves in this presentation. So our last session is about science communication competitions. We are going to present a few of them, both in China and in Europe. The first one I want to talk about is the Innovation Lab Shanghai. That is organized by the German Academics Exchange Service. It's one of the largest in the world
your
funding organizations.
Your slides?
You cannot see it. I was using my slide. But
sorry.
Let's see if it starts now. Yes? Okay. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, so the German Academic Exchange Service. So one of the foundations that supports exchange of students and researchers. They are also based in China, and they have organized this competition a couple of times in the last years in Shanghai. The final aim is, of course, that of promoting Sino-German exchange and try to establish more collaborations. And what is this really about? I think it's very interesting, and it's a lot of fun. Basically, they bring together in Shanghai researchers, people from the academy, but also people working in the world of enterprises, both startups and also large worldwide famous enterprises, to compete with each other in a 3-minute pitch where they need to present their innovative ideas. We are talking about many different backgrounds: social science, hard science, architecture, urbanization, but quantum physics and artificial intelligence, everything. With an international jury and an international audience, they are going to select who is the winner of the pitch, who was the most creative, the most smart thinking in communicating his or her idea. And the winner of this competition then finally ends up in Berlin to take part of this wider competition, the Falling Wall Lab. So what is it? The Falling Walls Lab is basically an international platform. It brings together, again, students, researchers, and professionals that are in their early stage careers. And what happens is that many of these competitions happen throughout the whole year in all around the world in more than 60 different countries. And the winners of these competitions, the 100 finalists that have been selected by the juries in the different countries, so also including the winner that is selected in China for that year, compete in Berlin with the pitch, and they gather every year on the 8th of November, which is the anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall and the reunification of Germany, and to have a worldwide competition. The aim of Falling Walls Lab is also that to provide a stage to young professionals and researchers to pitch and to raise awareness on what they're doing, both at local level, nationally, but also at international levels, and in many different audiences, so in the world of science, but also in the one of politics, of art and culture. So it's a very multifaceted and interdisciplinary kind of approach and initiative. What is also related to the Falling Wall Lab Final, that is the final competition in Berlin, is the Falling Walls Conference. That is also an event that happens the day after, on the 9th, and where 20 top-class international scientists compete again, and they presenting their breakthrough innovations by replying to the fundamental question, which is which are the next walls that are going to fall. So I think very, very exciting, very exciting environment, very nice initiative. It connects many innovators and researchers and bright minds from all around the world, create the possibility of enlarging networks and developing new scientific collaboration and communication. So I thought it was really worth of presenting it and introducing it a little bit in today's meeting. We move on, Halder, and I think that I'll let you try again to show a video. I know that also the last one, I could hear it, someone else couldn't, but let's give it a try. It's anyway a very short video.
Intense, that's how it was. 3 minutes was shorter than you think it is.
3 minutes, it's enough to say what's the purpose, what's the problem you want to solve, how you're going to do it, and what does it take.
What you're looking at right now is the first schematic for a cure for the deadliest infectious disease known to humanity.
I talk a lot, so at different presentations I see myself running beyond time. So the participation has helped me learn how to carve my story and present it in a pitch form in a very short time.
Thank you very much.
I really fell in love with this event because it brings together all the great minds on one stage.
You need to be also out of the box in order to share, to feed your own research with the contact with the others.
I hope that the future sees more collaborative efforts like this, where people come together, bring in different strengths, and fusing those together to solve complex problems. And science will be key to that journey.
All right. Okay, so that's the last video of today. Let us bring it back to the position. Thank you so much, Anna, for introducing the Falling Walls Lab. In addition to what you just said, I just want to say that I was talking to the DAD, the German Academic Exchange Center, who is one of the main supporters of the Falling Walls, and she and the directors there, they were telling me that they might have one in Beijing also this year. So there's one in Shanghai. There's also going to be maybe one in Beijing this year. So if you're interested in the Falling Walls and participating in this, it's an amazing opportunity to really try your chops with the with science communication. We don't have the details yet exactly when and how it's going to be. But what you could do is that you could find the DAD, the German Academic Exchange Center, on WeChat to find out when this is going to be. We're very much in favor of this competition. We think it's really excellent way for young researchers to introduce their research, and also innovators and young professionals doing interesting projects. So that is really, really cool and a really interesting thing. But one thing to note about this, it's only 3 minutes long. It's a very short presentation. Doesn't mean it's not easy, it's not difficult. It is very difficult. But 3 minutes nonetheless is it's a format that makes for a very specific type of a presentation. If you want to catch people's attention in 3 minutes, you need to be very good. But that brings me to sort of the last thing I wanted to talk about today, which is the EURAXESS Science Lab. And the EURAXESS Science Lab, that is our baby. That is what EURAXESS has been doing in China now since, when did we do it first time? 2013, for 8 years already. And we've had like this year will be 6th Science Lab that we organize. And the Science Slam is, if you've been following EURAXESS for a long time, you know the Science Slam. It's very, very interesting. It's very, very high level, nice little event. It's different from the Falling Walls. It's not about innovation necessarily. It's for scientists and researchers to talk about the science and research that they do. And it's not 3 minutes, it's a little bit longer. You get like 10 minutes to do like what we call like a slam, where you go up there and you're supposed to talk to a general audience of people about what you're researching. So you're not supposed to be technical about it, etc. You're supposed to be interesting and try to catch their interest. And that can be quite difficult, and you need to often to prepare a lot for something like that. And we have, but we have had a lot of luck in the past to bring in like Chinese researchers and scientists and other people, also Europeans here in China that are doing science here, to come in to introduce what they do. And that is the EURAXESS Science Slam. We're going to be having one this year. And I've been looking at the group here today. We still have more than 100 people with us. If you guys are going to finish the course, all the 5 of them, I think we might have some really nice contenders and potential participants for our Science Slam next fall. And it's not bad. I mean, the Science Slam is really excellent. It's normally really big. Last time we did it, it was in Zhongguancun. We held it here in Zhongguancun in Beijing. And over there, we had the top leader of science and technology from Europe. He came to China and he gave the big prize to the main winner. We invited researchers from all over China to come participate. We invite them to come here and do their slam for us after already applying and being able to win and get there. And this is for all different fields of research. This is for all researchers from different researchers levels. You can be like all of it from PhD student up to older professor. We don't care. We care about the communication there. And it's open to anybody here. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be doing social science, or you could be doing like very hardcore natural science. It's always possibility to communicate this. And we are going to do one this year, and it's going to be in the second half of 2021. And hopefully this presentation here today is going to inspire you to learn some science communication. Hopefully you're going to finish it, get your feedback from us, and then participate in that later in the year. I think it will be very exciting. Of course, we don't know exactly yet how it's going to be. If the coronavirus is going to be very difficult, then we might not be able to do it with a public audience, but we might still invite people over and then just stream it online for people to watch. That's one thing that could be happening. And also another big question is, normally the winner of the Science Slam wins a trip to Europe where he can visit any research institute that they want, and we help them to make that connection. This year, I don't know, maybe not very easy to go traveling internationally these days. Who knows? But if we cannot give that gift, we will find something as good, if not better, to give you as a prize for the winners. Everybody that participate wins. And this year, hopefully, we'll have a lot of diamond certificate Science Slam trained people that can actually apply and become really good at this. And this is not too difficult to get in. I mean, like, if you follow sort of the rules that we are going to be laying out in this training course, you will be successful. I'll promise you. We have a really good experience. I put up here pictures of some of our winners of the Science Slam in the past. And what I wanted to do, we have like over there is Dr. Chong Tung Chong, who's receiving the trip to Europe from Jean-Eric Paquet, who's the leader of science and technology at the European Commission, came to China to give him this prize. He is going to be with us at the end of this course to share his experience as a science communicator. So you should look towards that. He might be able to give you some good tips as well about how to be a science communicator. If you want to see his slam online, we already uploaded it on our WeChat channel. You can find it there, and you can see what he was doing right and how good he is. I also had a video for the Science Slam, but you know what? We're already over time, so let's not watch that. We will maybe watch that later in Dr. Chong's webinar. Let's see if he's interested in sharing that at that point. Instead, what I suggest is that we'll just go to the final part of the webinar, which is the Q questions and answers. I know it's been very long. It was supposed to be 20 minutes shorter than this. One big thing, when you are doing a presentation, time management is really important. And in a way, maybe we failed at that today, but I think it was still okay. There was we were doing this course for the first time and so on, so we're still learning how long things takes and so on. But in general, this is not a good practice. Be 20 minutes over time like this. Sorry for that. But if you have any questions, I saw there was also already a lot of questions, right, Anna? We have in the chat box some people asking questions.
Yeah, we received a few questions. I'll start from the last one because it's related to what you just concluded. I think someone is asking if they can apply for this program. And I think they are talking about, I'm not sure if the person, Chi Chun Wu,